Why do you keep repeating the same mistakes, even when you know better? Why do you find yourself falling into the same patterns, choosing the same type of partner who ends up hurting you, procrastinating on the same opportunities that could have changed your life, or sabotaging your own success just when things finally start working? You call it bad luck. You call it fate. You tell yourself, next time will be different. But it isn't, is it? The same story plays out again and again, only with different characters, different places, and the same ending. And here is the truth that no one wants to hear. Every mistake you repeat is not a coincidence. It's not a curse. It's not even about the world outside. It's a symptom of something far deeper: self-abandonment. Think about it. Each time you silence your true voice to avoid conflict, each time you choose people who don't value you, each time you put everyone else's needs above your own, you are not simply making a mistake, you are betraying yourself. You are walking away from your own essence, and life has no choice but to confront you with the same lesson until you finally face it. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That's exactly what's happening here. The unconscious keeps throwing the same scenarios at you, not to punish you, but to wake you up. To show you that the enemy is not out there, it's within, in the parts of yourself you've ignored, rejected, or denied. So the real question is not, why do I keep failing? The real question is, how long will I keep abandoning myself before I decide to come home? Because every repeated mistake is not proof of weakness, it's a message from your soul. And the longer you ignore it, the louder it gets. Before we dive deeper into this journey, I want to ask you for something simple. If these words are already resonating with you, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. That way, you'll be the first to know when I share the next piece of content insights that might just shift the way you see yourself and the world. Your support means everything, and it helps us grow this space for real transformation. Let's bring this idea down from theory into the reality of everyday life, because philosophy only matters if it touches the world you actually live in. Think about relationships. How many times have you promised yourself you wouldn't fall for the same type of person again? The charming one who later turns cold. The partner who takes more than they give. The one who leaves you feeling drained rather than alive. And yet, despite all your resolutions, you end up in the same story, almost like déjà vu at first. It feels different. The details change, the names change, the settings change, but the ending is hauntingly familiar: betrayal, emptiness, or the realization that you were never really seen for who you are. Or maybe for you, the cycle shows up in procrastination. You say this time you'll go after that promotion. This time you'll launch the project. This time you'll finally apply for the opportunity you've been dreaming about. You even feel a surge of motivation at the beginning. But slowly, the excuses creep in. I'll start tomorrow. The timing isn't right. I'm not ready yet. Days turn into months, months into years. And one day you realize you've been rehearsing the same script of postponement for half your life. For others, the repetition takes the form of habits that numb rather than heal. You tell yourself you'll cut back on drinking, but when the stress hits, the glass of wine calls your name. You want to eat better, but late at night, after a day that feels heavy and unfulfilling, the junk food seems like the only comfort. Or maybe you find yourself scrolling endlessly, consuming distraction after distraction, and when the screen finally goes dark, you feel even more empty than before. The cycle repeats, not because you don't know better, but because something inside you is trying to speak and you keep ignoring it. And then there's the American obsession with hustle culture. It looks like ambition, but for many, it's just another loop of self-abandonment. You work until you're exhausted, chasing a definition of success you didn't even create. You tell yourself, once I hit this income, this promotion, this milestone, I'll finally feel whole. But what happens? You hit the milestone, celebrate for a moment, and then feel the same emptiness creeping back in. And instead of asking why, you double down. You pour more hours into the grind, post your achievements on social media, and keep running on the treadmill of productivity that never stops. You burn out, collapse, take a short break, and then get right back on the same track. This cycle is everywhere. The faces change, the details shift, but the story remains the same. And the most dangerous part? We rationalize it. We tell ourselves, that's just life. That's just how things are. Everyone makes mistakes. But what if the truth is much harsher? What if these repeated mistakes are not random at all? What if every loop you find yourself stuck in is life screaming at you? Wake up, you are abandoning yourself. Carl Jung said that the soul has a way of making itself heard when you ignore it. At first, it whispers through subtle discomfort, small anxieties, a quiet sense of dissatisfaction. But if you don't listen, the whisper grows louder. It becomes frustration, repeated heartbreak, and constant exhaustion. And if you still don't listen, it turns into suffering so heavy that you have no choice but to pay attention. Let's be brutally honest. The partner who disappointed you wasn't really the problem. It was the part of you that knew they weren't right, but you stayed anyway. The opportunities you missed weren't because of bad timing. They were because you didn't trust yourself enough to take the risk. The burnout wasn't just the company's fault. It was the part of you that refused to honor your own limits, that believed your worth depended only on your output. That is self-abandonment. Every time you betray your own needs, your own truth, your own boundaries, you step a little further away from yourself. And life, being the ruthless teacher that it is, simply puts you back in the same classroom until you finally learn the lesson. In America, this pattern hides behind cultural slogans. Work hard, play hard, no pain, no gain. Fail fast, fail often. On the surface, they sound motivating, but behind them is often an unconscious worship of repetition, the glorification of mistakes without reflection, the endless cycle of hustle without purpose. We mistake exhaustion for achievement, distraction for relaxation, and busyness for meaning. And then we wonder why the same emptiness follows us everywhere. But look deeper. Isn't it strange that we can be so intelligent, so educated, so resourceful, and still repeat the exact same behaviors that destroy us? That's because these mistakes are not intellectual problems. They are emotional wounds, unconscious patterns, shadows we refuse to face. Jung called this shadow work, the process of bringing into awareness the parts of ourselves we've exiled. Until we do that, the mistakes will keep repeating, not because we are weak, but because the psyche is trying to heal itself. So the next time you ask yourself, why does this keep happening to me? Pause. Don't rush to blame bad luck, toxic people, or an unfair system. Ask instead, where have I abandoned myself? That question is uncomfortable, but it's also the only question that can break the cycle. We've seen how repeated mistakes show up in real-life broken relationships, procrastination, addictions, and the endless cycle of hustle culture. But let's go deeper. Let us ask, why does the human mind insist on putting us back into the same painful situations? Carl Jung gave us one of the most powerful insights. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. In other words, the mistakes you repeat are not accidents. They are not the universe punishing you. They are the unconscious pulling the strings of your life from the shadows. Think of the unconscious as a locked basement inside your mind. Every unresolved emotion, every memory you didn't know how to process, every part of yourself you rejected, it all gets stored down there. You pretend those things are gone, but they aren't. They live in the dark waiting. And when you meet someone new, or face a decision, or stand at a turning point, the unconscious whispers, choose this, do that. And because you don't recognize the voice, you think it's free will. But it isn't, it's conditioning. Jung warned that ignoring the unconscious doesn't make it disappear, it makes it more powerful. That's why you repeat the same heartbreak, the same failures, the same mistakes. They are signals pushing you to confront what you've buried. But instead of listening, most people run. They blame others, blame circumstances, blame bad luck. And in doing so, they guarantee the cycle continues. Freud saw this too. He called it the repetition compulsion, the strange, almost self-destructive tendency of human beings to recreate old wounds. A child who grew up with rejection may unconsciously seek relationships that repeat that same rejection. A person abandoned in the past may find themselves attracted to partners who are emotionally unavailable. It seems irrational, even masochistic. But Freud argued that the psyche repeats not because it enjoys suffering, but because it is trying to resolve unfinished business. The unconscious keeps dragging you back to the wound, hoping this time you will face it, integrate it, and finally heal. But here's the paradox. Instead of healing, most people reenact the trauma over and over again. They suffer without ever learning. They confuse familiarity with love, chaos with excitement, workaholism with purpose, and so the cycle tightens like a noose. Nietzsche took this understanding even further. For him, the tragedy is not just repeating mistakes, but refusing to take responsibility for them. He despised the idea of blaming fate or society or the gods for our suffering. He believed that freedom comes only when you stop outsourcing responsibility and recognize that you are the author of your life. Imagine Nietzsche looking at your repeated mistakes. He would not say, "Poor you." He would not call you a victim. He would say, "You are complicit. You are repeating because you refuse to own your power." Harsh, yes, but liberating too. Because the moment you see that the cycle is yours, you also see that breaking it is possible. Nietzsche also spoke about eternal recurrence, the idea that you must live as if you will repeat this exact life for eternity. Ask yourself, if every mistake you've ever made were to repeat forever, would you accept it? If the answer is no, then you are living in self-abandonment. Nietzsche's challenge was not meant to depress you, it was meant to force you into radical responsibility. To stop waiting for circumstances to change and start creating meaning even inside the chaos. So what do Jung, Freud, and Nietzsche tell us together? That your mistakes are mirrors. Jung says they come from the unconscious, the shadow you refuse to face. Freud says they are repetitions of wounds left unresolved, the psyche's desperate attempt to heal. Nietzsche says they become your fate when you refuse responsibility, when you choose victimhood over authorship. This means every mistake is not just a failure, it's information. It's feedback from the deepest parts of your being. It's the soul's way of knocking on the door, saying, "Look at me, you cannot abandon me forever." But modern life distracts us from this truth. We are numb with pleasure, drowned in work, and scroll through endless screens. We run from the silence where the unconscious speaks. And so the cycle persists. Jung would call this avoidance neurosis, the price you pay for running from legitimate suffering. Freud would call it repression. Nietzsche would call it cowardice. Different words, same reality. You are abandoning yourself. Breaking the cycle requires courage. The courage to sit in silence and listen to the unconscious. The courage to confront the shadow without running. The courage to admit, yes, I chose this. And because I chose it, I can choose differently. So the next time you notice yourself in the loop, whether it's another toxic relationship, another missed opportunity, or another night numbing yourself with distractions, pause. Ask yourself, what wound am I repeating? What part of me is crying out for attention? And will I keep calling this fate, or will I finally call it self-abandonment? That is the moment transformation begins. Not when you stop making mistakes, but when you stop abandoning the truth they are trying to show you. Let's get to the heart of the matter. Why are repeated mistakes not just accidents, not just bad choices, but clear signs of self-abandonment? Because every time you repeat them, you are not only failing in the outer world, you are betraying yourself in the inner world. Think of the moments when you stayed silent, even though everything inside you was screaming to speak. Maybe it was in a relationship where you knew you were being mistreated, but you kept quiet to keep the peace. Maybe it was at work when you knew you deserved credit or recognition, but you swallowed your truth to avoid conflict. On the surface, it looks like you avoided a problem. But deep down, something much worse happened. You abandoned yourself. You told your own soul, your voice doesn't matter. And once you accept that lie, you begin to repeat it everywhere until silence becomes your identity. Or consider the people you choose. How many times have you settled for relationships that deep down you knew weren't right? The partner who only loved the version of you that served them. The friend who took more than they ever gave. The family dynamic where you played the role of caretaker while no one cared for you. Each time you chose to stay, you weren't just choosing them, you were rejecting yourself. You were saying, I am not worthy of more than this. I don't deserve better. That belief, rooted in unconscious wounds, keeps pulling you back to the same kind of people, the same kind of heartbreak, over and over again. Then there's procrastination, which many dismiss as laziness. But let's be honest, it's not laziness, it's fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of not being enough. And each time you procrastinate, you are not just postponing a task, you are postponing yourself. You are betraying your own potential. You are abandoning the part of you that wants to grow, create, and become. Imagine your future self standing there, waiting for you, and every time you delay, you turn your back on them. That is self-abandonment in its purest form. This is why repeated mistakes are so devastating. They're not random errors, they're signs. Every toxic partner is a mirror showing you the love you refuse to give yourself. Every missed opportunity is proof of the potential you refuse to believe in. Every numbing habit is a message that you're avoiding the deeper truth of what your soul actually needs. Carl Jung warned us, when we ignore the inner voice, it does not vanish, it rebels. The unconscious begins to stage protests in your life. You think you're unlucky, but it's not luck. It's the soul trying to wake you up. Each repeated mistake is the psyche's way of saying, you are not on your own side. You've abandoned me, and I will not let you forget it. And here's the painful paradox. Most people think mistakes prove weakness. But in truth, they prove the opposite. They prove your soul is still alive enough to fight for your attention. The real danger is not failure, it's numbness. The real tragedy is not mistakes, it's a life so silenced, so abandoned, that the soul stops protesting altogether. That's when you become a shell, functioning on autopilot, existing without ever truly living. So why do we keep abandoning ourselves? Because self-abandonment is often disguised as virtue. You think you're being the bigger person when you stay silent. You think you're being loyal when you tolerate someone who doesn't deserve you. You think you're being responsible when you sacrifice your dreams for security. You think you're being realistic when you tell yourself, I'll start tomorrow. But beneath all these disguises lies the same painful truth. You are betraying yourself to be accepted, to be loved, to be safe. And the cost is your soul. Nietzsche would call this the tragedy of herd morality, living for others' approval instead of your own truth. Freud would call it unresolved trauma repeating itself. Jung would call it the shadow sabotaging you from within. No matter the language, the reality is clear. You are not standing on your own side. But here's the most important point. Your mistakes are not proof that you are broken. They are proof that you are being called back to yourself. Every repeated mistake is a doorway. Each time you fail, life is asking you, will you keep abandoning yourself, or will you finally come home? When you see it this way, mistakes stop being enemies. They become teachers. They stop being punishments and start being signals. The real failure is not in repeating the mistake. The real failure is in refusing to hear what the mistake is telling you. So the next time you notice yourself about to repeat a pattern, whether it's staying silent, settling for less, or procrastinating, pause. Ask yourself, am I about to betray myself again? Am I abandoning my own truth in this moment? If the answer is yes, then the choice is in your hands. Because once you recognize self-abandonment, you can begin the work of self-loyalty. And that is where true transformation begins. If repeated mistakes are symptoms of self-abandonment, then the way forward is not about erasing mistakes, not about building a flawless life where nothing ever goes wrong. That's an illusion, and chasing it will only make you abandon yourself even more. The real path begins when you stop asking, "How do I avoid mistakes?" and start asking, "What is this mistake trying to teach me about myself?" Every mistake carries a message. The partner who hurt you shows you the places where you don't yet believe you deserve better. The job you keep quitting shows you the parts of you that crave freedom but haven't found a meaningful outlet. The procrastination shows you the parts of yourself that are terrified of stepping into your true power. If you listen carefully, your mistakes are not enemies. They are guides. They are the unconscious speaking in the only language they know: repetition. But listening requires something most people avoid: radical self-honesty. To look at your patterns without excuses, without blame, without sugarcoating. Radical honesty means asking yourself questions like, where am I lying to myself? What am I pretending not to know? Where have I abandoned myself in the name of safety, approval, or comfort? This kind of honesty is terrifying because it strips away illusions. But it's also liberating, because once you see clearly, you can no longer play the victim of your own life. Carl Jung would call this process individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming whole by integrating the parts of yourself you've exiled. Especially the shadow, the anger you suppressed, the desires you denied, the wounds you refused to face. Most people run from the shadow, fearing it will consume them. But Jung reminds us, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. This means your mistakes are not accidents, they are invitations. Every time you repeat a destructive pattern, life is saying, there is a piece of your shadow here. Will you look at it? Will you bring it into the light? True strength is not about pretending to be untouchable. True strength is the courage to look at your own darkness without flinching, to admit your contradictions, to embrace your flaws and gifts as one inseparable whole. Nietzsche offers another piece of this puzzle, the courage to live as yourself, not as what society demands. He warned against herd morality, the blind following of cultural norms that makes people betray their own instincts. Think about it. How many of your mistakes come from living by someone else's script? Choosing the safe career because it's what your parents wanted. Staying in a relationship because society told you stability is better than solitude. Working yourself into exhaustion because culture worships productivity over presence. Nietzsche would look at your repeated mistakes and say, of course you are suffering, you are living a life that is not your own. His solution was not comfort, but courage, the courage to break from the herd. To carve your own path, to bear the weight of freedom. This is why radical self-honesty and individuation are not just therapeutic practices, they are acts of rebellion. To live authentically in a world that constantly tempts you to abandon yourself is the greatest revolution of all. So what does this look like in practice? Stop numbing, start noticing. Instead of drowning your mistakes in distractions, sit with them. Journal about them. Ask what they are trying to reveal. Name your shadow. When you notice yourself repeating a destructive pattern, don't judge it. Don't deny it. Name it. Say, this is the part of me that's afraid of rejection. Or this is the part of me that doesn't believe I'm worthy. Naming disarms the shadow. Choose self-loyalty over self-betrayal. Before every decision, ask, am I standing with myself, or am I abandoning myself again? If you catch yourself abandoning, pause. Choose differently, even if it's uncomfortable. Create your own values. Nietzsche insisted that true freedom comes when you stop following borrowed values and create your own. Ask yourself, what do I actually believe in? What do I actually want? Live from that, not from someone else's expectations. This path is not easy. It requires courage. It requires sitting in discomfort. It requires admitting truths you've run from for years. But here is the paradox. The very act of facing the pain you've been avoiding is the doorway to freedom. Jung, Freud, Nietzsche, in their own ways agreed that healing doesn't come from escape. It comes from confrontation. So stop abandoning yourself in the pursuit of safety. Stop betraying your own truth in the hope of approval. Stop numbing yourself to avoid pain. Instead, listen, confront, integrate, be honest, be courageous. Because the real mistake is not failing. The real mistake is refusing to hear what your failures are trying to say. Every mistake you repeat is not a punishment. It is not fate working against you. It is not proof that you are broken, cursed, or doomed. It is your soul calling you back. Every time the same pattern reappears in your life, it is life itself saying, "You are not listening. You are not standing with me. You are leaving me behind." And the question now is simple, but it is also the most difficult question you will ever face. Will you keep abandoning yourself, or will you finally come home? Coming home to yourself does not mean perfection. It doesn't mean you'll never stumble again. It doesn't mean you'll suddenly have the answers to every problem. Coming home means that even when you stumble, you will not betray yourself in the process. It means you will honor your voice, your worth, your truth, even when it's inconvenient, even when it's terrifying, even when the world tells you otherwise. The truth is, your mistakes are not against you. They are for you. They are guideposts, pointing you back to the parts of yourself you've ignored. That relationship that broke your heart, it wasn't there to destroy you. It was there to show you how much you've been tolerating what you don't deserve. That opportunity you let slip wasn't there to shame you. It was there to show you the fear you still need to face. That habit you can't seem to break, it's not proof of weakness. It's a signal that something in you is asking for healing, not punishment. Carl Jung taught us that what we refuse to make conscious will rule our lives, and we will call it fate. Freud revealed that the compulsion to repeat is the psyche's desperate attempt to resolve what has been left unresolved. Nietzsche demanded that we stop blaming destiny and own the authorship of our lives. Together, they leave us with one undeniable truth. Your repeated mistakes are not your enemy. Your refusal to listen is. So here is the invitation, the call to action. The next time you find yourself repeating a mistake, don't rush to self-criticism. Don't spiral into shame. Don't throw your hands up and say, "That's just who I am." Instead, pause. Look yourself in the eye and ask, what part of me am I betraying right now? Where am I abandoning myself? It's not an easy question. It will sting. It will strip away your excuses. But it will also free you. Because the moment you recognize the betrayal, you can choose differently. You can choose self-loyalty over self-abandonment. You can choose honesty over illusion. You can choose courage over silence. And here is the promise. When you dare to face your mistakes not as enemies, but as messengers, the loop begins to break. The same patterns stop haunting you because their purpose has been fulfilled. You've heard the message. You've taken responsibility. You've come home. That is what true freedom looks like. Not a life without mistakes, but a life where mistakes no longer own you. A life where even your failures serve your awakening. A life where you no longer walk away from yourself, but toward yourself step by step, choice by choice. So will you keep abandoning yourself, or will you finally return? That decision is yours, and yours alone. But know this, every time you stand with yourself, no matter how small the step, you are breaking centuries of conditioning. You are rewriting the script. You are choosing life. If this message resonates with you, don't let it fade into the background noise of another video you forget by tomorrow. Take it with you. Write it down. Reflect on it. And if you want to keep walking this path of honesty, of courage, of awakening, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. That way, you'll be the first to know when the next piece of content arrives, content designed not to entertain you, but to awaken you. This is not about building a channel. This is about building a movement of people who refuse to live asleep, who refuse to keep abandoning themselves, who refuse to keep calling their unconscious patterns fate. And if you're here, if you're still listening, that means you are one of them. So let this be your turning point. Let this be the moment you decide, no more self-abandonment, no more betrayal, no more loops without meaning. Let this be the day you finally come home. Because your soul is waiting. It has been waiting all along. If this message spoke to you, don't let it end here. Take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you'll be the first to receive the next awakening insight we share together. And I'd love to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell me, what part of today's message resonated most with you? What lesson, what truth, what moment hit you the hardest? Because when you share, you not only remind yourself, you also help awaken someone else who may need these words today.